Welcome to the Tailoring Talk Show with me, your host, Roberto Revilla. I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer, and owner of Roberto Revilla London Suit and Shirt Makers. It's the podcast where you drop in for the threads, but often leave with something quite unexpected. You join me as I meet self-starters and creators to learn about their journeys, the highs and lows, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Please support the show by subscribing, and if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it helps so much if you take a few seconds to rate and review my show. My guest today is an executive health consultant and epigenetic atelier. I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly. And the host of the Executive Health and Life podcast. He originally pursued a career in medicine, but left quickly to chase an even bigger dream, a world where generational health and wealth accompany each other. His boutique, Executive Health, is a concierge providing state-of-the-art preventative care for forward-thinking entrepreneurs, investors, and executives. Think of him as the CEO of your health, which he monitors so you can maintain your edge. With 300 plus articles published in some of the world's biggest magazines, he's the author of Body Architect, a real-world guide to ignite your fitness, look awesome naked, quiet the inner voices of self-doubt, and design a lifestyle on your own terms. Tailoring Talkers, please join me in welcoming Julian Hayes II to the Tailoring Talk Show. Julian, how are you?
I am super fantastic. No complaints over here. Thank you so much for that gracious introduction. And I'm happy to be on the show. Another James Bond fan, and we have many similarities. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you. Julian actually reached out to me. He has been listening to the podcast, the poor thing. I should send him a prize for putting up with it. But particularly, we kind of share this affinity with 007. And hopefully, I think some of our pre-show talk will make it into a little bonus Bondathon episode at some point, because we got into some kind of interesting stuff there. But I really, really do hope you'll join us when we get to the Dalton era, which is coming pretty soon, Julian. So I think about 3 months time, I think.
Okay.
And then we'll get you on. To be honest, I really want to speed the Bondathon up, because doing one a month is, it's kind of dragging a bit for me. So I think I need to get that train moving and then move on to another film series.
Or you can always do soundtracks. I don't know if you can do top soundtracks. There's so many avenues that you can do with the James Bond stuff, like list the theme songs, because I'm sure there's a lot of disagreement when what's the worst theme song, what's the best theme song. I know I have my opinions. And so there's limitless possibilities that you can do with Bond. You can ride that thing for probably another 3 or 4 years.
We were talking about this because Rich Gore, who you'll know from a couple of the Bond episodes, in particular on Her Majesty's Secret Service, I was on the phone to him once, and my iPhone randomly was playing Diamonds Are Forever as I was on the way to a meeting, and I was wearing, was it Diamonds Are Forever? I think it was Diamonds Are Forever. But anyway, he rang me in the middle of that as I got off a train, and he said, and I said to him, what do you think? Should we do a Bond soundtracks episode? And he was like, yeah, that'd be a great idea, and all the boys are down for it, and noted that you are too. So we'll try and get you involved in that. But he said to me, he put me on the spot, and he was like, what are your top 3 Bond songs of all time? So I was like, okay, great. So Diamonds Are Forever, Shirley Bassey. A View to a Kill, Duran Duran.
Really?
And so he said, and I can't remember what the other one was. And they aren't necessarily that. It's just that I was put on the spot. So I kind of went for the ones that, if I'm driving, that make me just push the accelerator that bit harder and get into a 007 frame of mind. Okay. I know that sounds really sad. I know a lot of you at home are laughing right now. Shoot me, I don't care. And Rich said, I'm going to disown you for that, for Duran Duran. So I said to him, what are your top 3? And his favorite Bond theme is For Your Eyes Only. Is it For Your Eyes Only? What's the one? All Time High, Rita Coolidge. From, I don't even know what film that's from. Octopussy? I think it's from Octopussy.
Yes, from Octopussy, yeah. I mean,
and from, yeah, that is the one. Like, if I have a 007 playlist on random, I will always skip that track.
I like the first 10, 15 seconds, a little jazz entry.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
but then
yeah.
when we start singing, it's like no. And just to join you in the it's people are like, really? He listens to that to drive fast. I have a playlist, so I do a lot of running, and I have a lot of the Bond theme songs on there, and I also have different random Bond songs on there. And it makes me I like to feel a little heroic and stuff, like I'm saving the world when I'm
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
So I don't have Duran Duran on there. So
Oh, okay.
I don't have that one. I don't have so I think let's see if I had to pick a three on the spot. I like kind of for the same reason for you. It's I like License to Kill.
Okay.
I like Golden Eye,
Yeah.
and I like Skyfall.
Okay. I'll give you those three.
Yeah.
They're decent picks.
And then Tom
You can put
Jones,
another one in. Oh,
Thunderball.
Thunderball.
Yeah. I love
That
that one.
one's grown on me because I remember on the Thunderball episode, I said that song didn't really do it for me for some
Mhm.
reason. But it has definitely grown on me as time has gone by.
It's the
Um,
lyrics. It's the lyrics. I just love the lyrics.
exactly. It is the lyrics. You're absolutely
Mhm.
right. But yeah, I mean, I think if I had to just choose one, oh, that's really tough. But I mean, I love Diamonds Are Forever because I just love the way, it starts off nice and gentle with the xylophone or whatever it is. And then Shirley Bassey's voice comes in and she kind of goes through that first kind of couple lines.
Mhm.
And then the orchestra comes in. Da-da-da-da-da, and then the bass line. Oh, man, it's awesome. And it just brings all these feelings that you're in for this revenge thriller. His wife was killed on the wedding day in the last one. He's going to go after Blofeld. And we got absolutely none of that in that film. It was
No, no,
one
we
of
didn't.
one of the worst Bond films ever. I'm sure I'm there's going to be a couple coming up that will be worse than that. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Bond. We're here to talk about you and your amazing work,
Mhm.
Julian. So you are calling from Nashville, Tennessee. Congratulations. You are the first person from the state of Nashville on the Tailoring Talk podcast. So happy to have you here. The home
Awesome.
of the best guitars in the world, Gibson. It is on my bucket list to visit the Gibson factory one day and come home with a Les Paul from the Gibson factory or a Stratocaster or both. Have you ever been?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay, fine.
I have not. I have not been. I've been to a lot of concerts and the Ryman, and I have to do the obligatory honky tonking down the country music row. Anytime people come in, they want to see that, so I have to like, okay, here we go again. So I've done that, but I've not done any tours of the guitars. I appreciate the guitars, and I wanted to learn how to play an instrument, but there wasn't the guitar. So I guess that's why I've just never been called to it. It's just because the guitar is not my top choice.
Yeah. Okay, fair play. I started to learn to play because I wanted to play at our wedding. And so I played Times Like These by the Foo Fighters at our wedding as a surprise for my wife. So my guitar was shipped over to Madrid. And then it's really funny because my wife kept popping up in places where we were trying to move this guitar around. So people would be trying to hold her attention. And then this huge acoustic auditorium sized guitar would be kind of moved around her to, go into something to get to the church and all this other stuff, and all very hilarious. But that's why I started learning the guitar.
That's a good motivation.
Yeah,
That's a good
it worked.
motivation.
I mean, when the guitar came out, Julian Brennan reception, the look on a lot of my friends and family's faces was like, oh my God, I didn't sing. My best man sung. I can't sing for a toffee. But I played. So, and it all went well. So it was all good.
I might steal that idea when the time comes. I'm
Yeah,
not going to do
sure.
the guitar. I might do like a trumpet or a saxophone.
Yeah, you're more
Yeah.
into the kind of jazz sort of vibe. Do you like that movie La La Land?
I never heard of it.
You never what? It was like it won loads of awards with Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling.
My movie knowledge is not good.
Unless it's 007.
Yeah, and that's from younger years, and so that's the thing.
Okay.
I had to, usually it's like I consume a lot more music than I do movies.
Fair enough.
And so usually something has to give. It's hard to know a lot of both. I'm sure some people do out there.
Okay,
but...
well, La La Land modern day musical
Okay, I'll write
about
it down.
a girl who's a struggling actress meets a boy who's a jazz pianist, and his dream is to own his own jazz club one day and keep jazz alive.
Oh,
It's a
that sounds good.
Damien Chazelle musical. It tells their story almost like the seasons of their relationship. I cry every single time at the end, but anyway, but it's wonderful. Some people don't like it. It went up against Moonlight with Mahershala Ali for the Oscar that year, and Moonlight won. But very, very good movie, and it has lots and lots of music in there. So, and it's jazz. So I highly recommend checking it out. Maybe we can talk about it sometime. The outfits are
Okay.
amazing in it as well.
Okay. I have it written down. I'm actually going to check that out. I'm due to watch
Okay,
something.
cool. So, Julian, executive health.
Hmm.
Um, Tell me a little bit. So you actually went to become a doctor. That was
Hmm.
originally what you and was everything to do with your education geared towards medicine? Um,
Yes. Yes.
okay.
In a very side fashion. So you go to undergrad, a lot of times when you, or university, depending on which side of the pond we're on.
Yeah. I think
As I learned,
you would call it
call it.
college.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think university sounds cooler if I'm being honest, but
It sounds really posh because college over here is what you do between the ages of 16 and 18.
hmm. I love that word on a side tangent, the word posh. Somebody called me posh. One of my friends called me posh.
Oh,
And I
really?
was like, yeah, I was like, am I posh? I was like, I think that's good, right? I don't know, but yeah, she's like, it's just very posh. I was like, okay. So,
So yeah, so
but
for you, so high school, college, or
yeah.
college, university was all geared towards this career in medicine. You were going to become a
Mhm.
doctor, presumably make all your parents,
Mhm.
aunties, all your parents, both your parents,
Mhm.
aunties, uncles, all very proud of you. You know, get a secure profession, all that kind of stuff. And then within a very short space of time, not even a year, you decide, nah, not for
Yes.
me.
Yes. So to do a brief origin story, I didn't really know about being a doctor or anything like that. So I went to college and played basketball in high school, had a few offers to go play junior college, but I had a full ride for academics. And I'm 5'11", and so I'm short tall. But if you're going to be 5'11" and try to play an NBA and that kind of stuff, you need to be super quick, which I'm not. So if I had a couple extra inches, maybe I would have went that route. So I made the smart decision on that to go to university. When you're there, that's when you're in this awkward phase. Um, I'm a late bloomer, so I'm a pretty skinny kid, about 165 pounds. Uh, Not really socially fluent yet, still in my introverted stage. And you get out there, you want to impress girls and everything. They're not giving you the time of the day. So you're like, okay, guess I'll go work out. And so you have this inspiration from like comic books and stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to look like one of these people. And so I really hit it hard in the gym. And I really start to enjoy health. But I'm a business major because it sounded cool. And I wanted to be one of those guys that maybe worked at GQ or something, and
Mm-hmm.
just gave ideas and went to dinner parties. And then when I went to internship and they told me that it starts with sales and things like that, I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. So I keep the degree, do some do all the pre requirements for that. So I'm going to physical therapy. I'm going to do physical therapy. Then that's not enough. I think it sounds cool to be a doctor. And the TV show House was getting a little more popular then. And take more prereqs. Finally get to medical school in New York. And then, as mentioned, I am from Nashville. New York's a totally different place. And up there, I'm generally back in Nashville. I'm regarded in my circle as the weird one, the outcast. In New York, I'm just a normal person because there's a lot of quote unquote crazy people in New York. I first found that out. There's a guy immediately when I land that's just dancing with a boombox. Somebody tries to sell me a fake watch initially and just all the sorts of things. I'm like, wow, what is this place? But I'm happy to be there because I had this dream of New York. I always had Sinatra in my head playing.
Yeah.
So I'm great. But during that time in New York, as I don't go to class as much as other people because now we have you have it on virtual too to record it. And I soon learned that a lot of teachers are just talking to hear themselves talk. And a lot of the information it's not going to be on the test. So I started to learn things at 2 and 3x speed. So I can get back more time and go have fun in the city, because I never had really a college experience. I didn't go out a lot in university to have fun. So I need to get that out of my bug. So what better place to party than New York?
Absolutely.
So I get out in the city a lot, and you meet people in New York. And the cool thing about cities like that is that everyone has a dream. Everyone's building the next big startup. A person's going to win a Tony. A person's going to win an Oscar. All these dreams. And so I'm at the Lower East Side one day at a place called the Yucca Bar. I still remember. I'm having a caipirinha, and there's a beautiful blonde girl beside me. So we're talking, and she's just describing her life. And, she's traveling, and she's doing work she loves as well. And I was like, man, that sounds pretty cool. I want to do something like that. School's very easy to me. So I'm just coasting. And I'm learning more and more. I don't want to be a doctor. I like ophthalmology, but the rest of the stuff, not really. I like health though. So I was like, okay. And then she puts this bug in my head. So I'm sitting in an anatomy exam. It's like a 3-hour test. I got a protein shake, and I'm getting ready to shake it up. I'm going to be that guy because it's a long time. And you have all the other kids, they're looking up, they're sweating, they're nervous, and just trying to frantically figure these answers out. I'm up and I'm like, oh no, this ain't where I want to be. So, I finished the test and everything. But through that year, that bug, and I'm just like, I think there's something else out there. And you start to search. Because when you have something in your head, I just feel like the universe or something, whatever you want to call it, it gives you those directions that you start to see. And so I started to see that there's other people that are in the health and fitness space, and they're making a living for themselves. So I figure, I've found my purpose. I'm excited. I come back home that year. I'm the golden child, by the way. I'm first generation to go to university. I can't do nothing wrong. I walk on water. And I tell everyone, hey, you know what? I'm done with this medical school thing. I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
Oh my gosh!
And as you can expect, I had a couple of people ask if I would go take a drug test. Ask what happened in New York, and so yeah, you do that process. And I was like, oh, I thought everybody would be excited for me, but everyone thinks I'm absolutely crazy. And I go back and realize now that there's no one in my family, in my vicinity, that is remotely involved in any type of work of self-employment. So I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Yeah. So, and then just over the time, you just figure things out. You think you're making momentum, then you get back and you just do that, and you end up here. But it's fun most days. It's scary some days, and it's annoying a few days.
Yeah, that actually describes my business completely. Fun most days, annoying some days, and whatever you said was the third thing. Okay, but same thing happened to me, right? So I went to college, and parents pretty happy with all my choices. The older friends that I hung out with at the time that my parents approved of were in banking or other professional, stable, rock solid careers. And I was doing math with statistics, business science. I can't remember what the other ones were, but they were equally as boring. And within about a week, I'd basically changed each A level to drama and theatre arts, art and design, English language, right, sociology. And I remember telling my parents that my timetable had changed because I changed my subjects. And they were like, okay, fine, make sure that you're home by such and such a time. So I get home, and my parents are sat on the sofa, and they've also invited all my quote unquote successful friends around, and they basically staged an intervention.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like, what is this? And like, well, we're really worried about you. And we're worried that you're going to be throwing your life down the drain because you're. And then one of my friends spoke up who was at Morgan Grenfell, so he'd gone into banking, and he was like, "You changed to all these arty-farty subjects, and we just don't understand what the hell you're doing. Have you gone mad?" I mean, the same as you, they probably wanted me to take a drugs test as well, but I had the strength of my convictions to stick to my guns, carry on with my path, and here we are today.
Yeah, and I think that it's courage, but it is also avoiding. I think the most toxic thing that you can have is regret. And I just remembered in the back of my head there was a couple older people in my community that were always talk about what I wish I did and what I wish I did and all of that. And I just never wanted to be that person. Yeah. And so, and plus I figured, the government, there will always be there to give me some more loans if I need to go back. That will never be a problem. They will love nothing more than to give me some more loans to get
and
into,
to load you with tons of student debt. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
awesome. So that then brought you. So where did you identify this link between health and performance and high performance individuals and so on? Because where I see it from my side of the fence is that I obviously make clothing and dress a lot of successful people or people who are on their way to success or going up the career ladder. A lot of them, their health has pretty much gone out the window. And they seem to prioritize just about everything else before their health. And it's really, really funny because my previous interview today with Darren Kidd, which was so energizing. Oh my God. Like, if you want a way to get the year started, start, if you host a podcast, especially as I'm fortunate enough to do, start your day by having Darren Kidd followed by you in the same recording session or afternoon block. I mean, just what a way to start off. But Darren was saying, what was Darren saying? Now I can't remember where I was going with this. I go off on a tangent all the time. Yeah, so he was saying that he had met some successful people that, like one maybe worth 100 million, who would say to him if they could go back, but health had gone kind of down the drain and stuff as time had gone on, and they all said if I could give up everything, all the wealth that I have, to go back 10 years, I would. So Darren made a decision to prioritize areas of his life, so spiritual, family, health, above finance, and put his health first. But he was saying that so many executives and successful people put, finance, their career, and so on before their health. So they spend most of their life building and amassing wealth, but then they get sick and there's no time left. And I see that a lot from my side of the fence in tailoring. I have some of my clients who, I was with one recently who said he's kind of in his late 50s now, and he was like, he's lost a ton of weight, he's really focusing on his health and so on, super successful individual. I think he does investments or something, and he said, and he's Swedish, so he's like a straight down the line the way that he talks. And he said, so yeah, I've lost 12 kilos and I'm going to keep going with this. He said, because at the end of the day, I sat down with my wife and I was like, assuming that no major emergency happens and I die a natural death, I've probably lived at least 2/3 to 3/4 of my life. So I'm going to make the last quarter stroke a third the effing best that I possibly can. And I am done with all this BS. And I'm now going to stick to this new regime that I'm on and so on. And I was like, wow, that's just such a great way of looking at it. But there was also part of me thinking, wouldn't it have been great if you'd come to that realization, not him specifically, just in case he's listening to this, he'll kill me. But all of us, if we came to that because again, you hear so many people that are, say, hitting, their 40s or their 50s, and they have been working really hard on their health, and they'll say things like, I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm in better shape now than I was when I was in my 20s. Wouldn't it have been great to have actually had that realization in your 20s and just been in your best shape then?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it
so
does.
that's from my side of it. So I see the link and I see where you have a lot of opportunity to help people. Now
Yeah.
you go.
I I understand it because I think a lot of times pain or actually seeing something or experiencing it is our best teacher. So for me, my father was sick, especially really sick the last years of his life, and I was a caretaker for him, and then he did dialysis for over a decade. And so and then I also saw that a lot of times when you got to 30 and after 30, things went downhill. So I always had that in the back of my head that men in my community lived a hard life, and I didn't want to be another statistic, and I didn't want. And I also met a gentleman earlier when I was about 16, 17 playing basketball. He was running up and down the court with us with no problem. He was much older than us. And that fascinated me. And so I had a conversation with him, and he, gave me a piece of advice about things he did. When you're 16, you're young and dumb. So you're like, okay, whatever. That's very basic stuff. But he planted a seed in me that took time to grow. And it really came to fruition during my university years. And so I get why people don't put health as the top priority, because a lot of times we live in a more reactive state. We don't really get propelled into action until we have to. Whereas when you're working on your career in finances, you usually think that is the top thing, because that's the way that society kind of projects things. So I get that. And a lot of times there's a certain thing with these types of people as well that I understand, is that there's like an edge to them. Maybe it's insecurity or something and so this is a way to prove to someone or something, or whoever, they call it the dark side. If you read some of Tim Grover's books, which is a good thing, so it's more than just the money. It's almost like, I don't want to use the word addiction, but there's just something calling them that they have to do this. It's part of who they are. So, and I don't think it's necessarily negligence. I think that's a big difference as well, because these people are far from lazy. That's the last thing they are. Maybe they're just overworked, overbooked. Maybe the health just gets unfortunately pushed to the bench because they got so many other things. The more successful that you get, the more responsibilities you have, the more that you don't want to go back to day one. You never want, once you start eating very good steak, you don't want to go back to poor quality steak after that. It just doesn't taste the same. And I imagine that's the thing with suits as well.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I get people first time bespoke suit and I call them after a few weeks and I'll say, hey, how are you getting on? And they'll say, I hate you. I'm like, oh my God, like you don't like what I did? And they're like, no, that's the problem. I hate everything else in my wardrobe now.
Yeah, that's the addiction.
And turning left on the plane. Like once you've turned left on a plane the first time, you never ever want to turn right ever again.
Yeah. And I also think it's the way that we think about health. You think it's going to be this huge time consuming activity, and that is just going to take away so many things. But really, when you take care of your health, that guy, we'll call him the investment banker. What he's going to realize is that he has more energy, so he's going to be a lot more efficient and effective. So he's actually getting more time back. So maybe you're putting time in right now, almost like actually investment, right? He's putting more time in right now. Maybe you don't see a lot of the fruits of your labor right now, but on the back end of things, you're going to see that benefit. Because I often tell people, like, how do you know that your health regimen is working? Well, if nothing's happening to you, nothing's happening. As you go throughout the years, you're doing something right. The least amount of drama or activity, you're doing something right throughout the years. Yeah. And so that's probably the critical thing, is just that the exposure. I just had the exposure of health and how important it is and what people would do to get health back. They would give up so many things to have their health back, to have basic functioning abilities to grow throughout the day. So that's always at the top of my head. And then I thought about just 50, 60, 70 years, we're going to live to be like 100, barring any unforeseen disasters or anything like that. We're pushing that envelope. If you avoid the major types of chronic illnesses, odds are you're going to live close to 100. just by default. I mean, I got an uncle right now, I believe he's like 100, and he doesn't know the word of biohacking or anything like that. So, I mean, I figured if he can do it, then a lot of us can do it with all this technology and knowledge.
It's like you hear about these old timers that like still smoke 50 a day and,
Yeah.
drink. And I mean, literally to the point where they'll be sucking the tap at the pub.
Yeah.
And yeah, like they're in their 90s or whatever. They've not heard of biohacking or,
None of that.
plant-based diets or any of this stuff. They're just like, so
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. So none of that. And I just think that it's really finding a way to connect with it, and also like what really connects you and gets you going. If they treated more of their business like with and brought those same principles to their health, they'll be a machine. Because if you can succeed in business, a lot of times you can succeed in health. And I'm kind of learning vice versa because I'm coming from the opposite end of the world. But and then the last point here is how do I come up on the idea of the whole thing? One is I kind of looked at my industry and saw, okay, where do I even fit in at? Because I don't even have an Instagram. I'm not really one of those people that likes to, just go shirtless and share all those pictures and flex and stuff. That's boring to me. That was early 20s. And so I, done that enough. And so I'm much past that. And then just you randomly meet people and you hear things and they're like, okay, so it seems like this is a problem. This is a problem. And it seems like most of the market or segment is focusing on this specific type of person. Well, I think I'll just focus on these people. Maybe it'll take a little more work initially up front, but this is me more. I actually identify with these types of people more than the other people. So it's easier for me to even be patient. It's easier for me to continue to build and work if nothing's coming in or whatever, because I actually feel more of a connection with this. And then like I said at the beginning, I started studying. I looked into like your industry and then hotels and see how they treat people. And that's where I started to get the ideas even more about, okay, let's have a service like this. Let's take some of the best aspects from outside these industries and bring them into this industry. And I think that's a foundation. And then we can continually build from there.
Yeah. Hence the concierge concept and aspect to what you do. Because where like a lot of your clients, how do they present themselves to you? Are they largely people who are already kind of sort of on top of things and are looking to sort of maintain that edge? Or are they people that come to you like a clapped out old car that's blown its engine and so on and is in dire need of, I mean, pretty much full servicing and whatever? I use too many analogies. Or is it a mix? Or
yeah, for the most part, I would say it's it's never a couch potato. It's never like, man, I just need to get started back exercising and eating, and I just eat so much of fast food. It's not really none of that. It's more like there's like, just like this inkling that I think there's more. I want to go to another level, or maybe I'm just average right now. I'm just getting by, but I would like to do more.
Yeah. Or
there's a proverbial little cliff I see in my head a lot of times where you start to hit. So I'm 36 right now, and even peers my age right now are starting to talk about this. These aches just, they hurt. They don't really go away. And, I'm still sore from my workout 3 days ago. And so I just feel my energy's not as good. So you start to have these little indicator lights. So like, my energy's not as good right now. And yeah, I'm not thinking as clearly. Or I'm having to put more effort into getting the results that I'm typically used to. So little things like that. And then of course there's more extreme things of like, hey, I'm not performing well. But it's never really using the word weight loss or anything. And so, because these are things you learn. So that's why on my website, I don't really mention weight loss. They don't talk about that. They talk about, I want to look good. I want to feel good. I want to maintain my status, my edge. And so you learn these words. And so it's more of a thing of, like I said, that goes back to the success thing in business, is that once you reach a certain level, you don't want to give that up. You want to stay there and get higher. And the health is part of it. And so aging comes up more, and you start to, and so I think probably around 35, 40 people start to think, okay, I'm not invincible anymore. And then just over the course of time, you hear about different things with aging and then so it's a combination of those things.
Yeah, totally. So it's kind of like, I mean, if I use the car analogy again, just because I'm sitting at my bedroom window and I can see my car parked outside, um, it's they kind of start to see the warning lights come up on the dashboard,
Hmm.
right? Because you're right, when you're in your 20s, you do have this invisibility cloak
Hmm.
where,
Yeah.
you're going to live forever, you're never going to get sick, you can't really kind of see the end of your life or whatever. And anyone who's, in their mid 30s and above is completely ancient as far as you're concerned as well.
Hmm.
And then when you do start to get more closer to that age, you then start to look at the percentages and think, well, okay, like, if my parents or my grandparents lived to such and such an age, that means I'm actually about 50 or 60% of the way through my life. And that can be pretty scary. One of my old bosses, he put it in terms of paychecks. It's like, he was like, what would you do if I told you you were less than 360 paychecks away from retirement?
Mm.
And I was just like, what? Oh, oh, I don't like the sound of
Yeah,
that.
I didn't, and because I was nervous initially about ever getting to this mid 30s point, but I'm better right now at 36 than I am at 26
Mm,
in terms of just biomarkers and all that because I have more knowledge and a little more wisdom. I probably can't dunk as well because I don't train for that right now. But everything else is still just as good, still just as good,
yeah.
and that's thanks to technology and things we know now. So, and another thing that brought my curiosity is that these people typically would be more forward thinking. So these novel ideas, this speaking of, why does the 120 become the new normal? Or I'm aiming to live to 215 years old. Sounds crazy. It's a total big moonshot, but just the possibility, just to even have it in your head, these ideas would be more receptive to a certain type of person than the typical audience that the fitness industry generally looks at. So,
Mm.
um, so it's a couple of different things there. So I guess the question with you is it the same thing when with individuals with bespoke suits? Because I'm thinking maybe if I'm wrong, let's see. You don't think of a suit a lot of times as just a necessity.
Mm.
Just like a lot of times, some of the stuff that I do, like some of the testing and lab testing that I can do, you don't think of it as an absolute necessity. Some people will say it's a luxury. Now I look at it differently because I'm thinking more long term. But I can see how someone who has a tunnel vision says, "Why don't I just get this suit? Like why should I do a bespoke suit?" If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to answer your question, but most people, it's a bit like, again, I'll use Darren as because he just gave so many great live examples. I mean, he was like rapid fire with them, but one of them he gave was like, you got some old timer sitting in a rocking chair on his porch, and his dog's lying there in front of him on a nail, and a stranger walks by and says, "Your dog's lying on a nail," and the prospector says, or the old timer says, "Yeah, don't worry about him. When it hurts enough, he'll get up."
Hmm.
And it's kind of the same for some people with bespoke clothing, that they often end up seeking out someone like me because the pain of going to the stores and buying off the rack clothing has just become too great. Whether it's because they can never find anything that fits them, whether it's because they've just continuously been disappointed with the quality, they don't have the time to deal with the aftercare, or, as in most cases, they just damn hate going around the shops, like trying things on and having to deal with all that goes on around it. They just don't have the time for that. And very often they'll be with one of my clients, and they'll be moaning about this stuff. And my client will say, why don't you just give my guy a call? He has my measurements. I've worked with him for 10, 12 years. Whenever I need something, we get together for a few minutes, we catch up, we pick fabrics. He's got my sizing. 6 weeks later, my clothes turn up. That's it. I don't really spend much time on it at all. He just takes care of it. And they're like, okay, that sounds great. I want to go and do that. Or they're those types of people that you talked about where they have that more forward thinking mentality, and they knew earlier on in that. So these will be my clients that come to me when they're already in their 20s,
Hmm.
And they already saw the fact that they needed to get their what together and
Hmm.
make sure that in every area of their life they were basically hitting it to whatever their budget would let them do. So my younger clients who come to me off their own backs, um, spend what they can to get me to help them to look and feel as good as they can. That's just part of, everything that they're doing with health, education, and self-education and so on, to help them to perform their best so they can get to where they want to go. And, when I look back now over a 20-year career, some of my clients who are very, very senior in senior global positions, when I first met them, they were in their late 20s, and they were the people that I've just described to you. And that is why 2 decades later, they are where they are.
Hmm.
So it's
That
one
makes
of two
sense.
mentalities. It's either because they're in a pain situation
Hmm.
and they need to get some Advil or Tylenol or Nurofen or Panadol, depending on which side of the pond you're listening to us on. Um, or they're more forward thinking and they realize that as part of their kind of success program, the whole image, bespoke clothing, getting things that fit right, look right, having someone like me tell them how they need to, how I'm going to put them in their best light is something that is essential to their journey towards whatever their version of success is.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of health. Like actually, like because I kind of think of like eight big pillars in my head for like optimal performance and everything, and presentation is one of those. A long time ago, I read a book called Executive Presence, and I think I read a couple others. And you can a lot of times tell people, you can tell with people that are dressed a certain way or just in whatever kind of clothes, if just how comfortable they are in that. And you can almost feel this different type of presence, charisma, and energy when someone's really dialed in and locked in with what they got on, and it really fits them, and they can feel it. You just have this different ease with you.
Yeah.
I bring this up because I had a friend who, for some reason, always thought he needed to wear blazers or something. I don't know why, and it just wasn't like his style. He's more like a biker guy, right? And it just didn't fit. He looked uncomfortable. It's almost like I imagine a girl that's walking in heels that doesn't really know how to walk in heels, and so she's just all wobbly and stuff. And so this guy there, and so I was like, hey man, you should probably search for your own style. There's different style archetypes out there. I think that's what they call it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And just find the one that suits you, and I guarantee you're going to come off better, at work and everything when you are in that actual thing. And lo and behold, months later, he gets a promotion and all that because he's more comfortable in his skin, something so basic. And so, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I just thought to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it's the same, like when you come to people's approach to health, diet, fitness, and so on. That's why I don't believe in following the latest diet trend
Hmm.
or fitness trend, because everybody's physiology is different, their chemistry is different, and people react to things in different ways. And you really have to find out what's best for you. I mean, take me for example, when it came to having to lose weight. So I'm probably back to where I was now. I feel that way after a week in Spain anyway. But I lost 12 kilos, which is roughly around probably getting close to 25 to 30
Hmm.
pounds.
Yeah.
And I tried a lot of things before and my weight had yo-yoed up and down, but I wasn't able to do anything that was sustainable. And one thing I learned from my own clients is that, they never talked about needing to get their health act together to sustain performance and so on, because that's a really interesting way of looking at it. And that's now the way that I look at what I do for health. And I mainly cycle, a little bit of running. I am starting to incorporate weight work and resistance work now.
Perfect.
But the reason why is weight loss isn't the primary goal. I know that weight loss will be a byproduct of that, and my body will do whatever it does in the way that it reacts to this type of training that I'm embarking on. But the main reason is to maintain my edge.
Hmm.
Whereas a lot of my clients don't talk in that way. And that, back with the Atkins diet was a thing, right? We all know the Atkins diet because it was supposed to be the wonder one. Eat as much meat as you want, just don't eat bread, potatoes, and whatever. Then, the current fad at the moment, I get my clients waving their phones because they have this app that tells them when they can eat. So they literally are living their lives by their app.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so we're planning a dinner. Are you free at this time? Oh, I'm sorry. I can't eat at that time. What? Sorry, you can't eat at 6:30 p.m. in the early evening. No, because the app won't let me. Like, what kind of way is that to live? So what are you doing the rest of the time? I'm fasting. I can't eat or drink anything. How
Yeah.
stupid is that?
Yeah. It's
So
one of those things get out of hand then. Um, and that's also where you have this proverbial seesaw. You have these people that for 3 months they may lose 10 pounds, and then they get the 10 pounds back in 3 months, and they lose it again. It's always this seesaw because they're not really building any synergy that blends in with their professional life, with their personal life, and everything. And so, just like you said, if I told people to, hey, I'm going to need you to, I don't know, never eat carbs. You go out to dinners a lot. A big part of your life is socializing. Could you do it? Yes. Would you be happy? Probably not. And so it's just those things of really thinking about what really fits you. It's almost,
exactly.
I think about it like fabric. There's different types of fabric for people that suits different people, and probably for where you live as well. The geography probably plays a big deal as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same way with your nutrition and fitness, is that there's like for me, I lift and run, and so I have a much higher carbohydrate diet than other people. And if I try to square peg myself into a certain type of thing, I'm going to crash and burn, and it's not going to be as enjoyable. And there was something else that you mentioned. I forgot I forgot it. Oh yeah, with the business and health. One of the things I learned, and this is to communicate that a lot of times. You couldn't just say, hey, if you work out, you're going to, like you said, you're going to lose weight. You're going to look ripped. You're going to look great on the beach. They're like, great. Okay. I already got a wife. I'm fine in that department. I'm not out on the dating market, so, but if you say, hey, when you're sleep deprived chronically, your brain doesn't know the difference between that. So you might be existing, but you're not thriving. But also, did you know that you have a prefrontal cortex and amygdala? Prefrontal cortex is connected with logic and reasoning, and your amygdala is more of this emotional, primitive state. The activity is going to decrease in your prefrontal cortex. It's going to increase in your amygdala when you're sleep deprived. So what does that give you? It gives you someone who's not acting with as much logic and reasoning, and they're acting much more in an emotional state. And so as a leader in both probably your business and at home, you're going to be coming from things from a lot more reactive standpoint, making rash decisions. And going back to our favorite investment banker, that's the worst thing you want to do, is to make decisions from an emotional standpoint. Or when you're in this emotional state, you tend to be more impulsive. So it's no coincidence that you always grabbing for caffeine or grabbing for that soda, that sugar or something in the middle of the day. And your dopamine levels are probably low as well. So you're looking for something that gives you pleasure. So you're going to be craving sweets as well. So your brain chemistry is off. So you might be wanting to do the right things, but you're fighting against biology right now. And so when you connect points like that down to an everyday level, that affects things that they treasure a lot, which for a lot of us is our business, our investments, then you're going to get that connection long term. Or for people that haven't had a kid yet, I was like, when we talk about epigenetics, is that maybe heart disease or diabetes runs in my family. But just because you have the propensity for it doesn't mean it's going to actually express. So for me, I'm like, okay, hey, I'm not just eating for myself. I'm eating for like up to 3 generations after me. And so you add this extra gravitas to what you're doing right now. And so it like you said, it gets much more bigger than just a simple, I want to have nice shoulders or anything. Those things are cool. But at the end of the day, a lot of times we care about the people close to us. We care about our business, our coworkers, our clients. And if we can find a way to incorporate and connect that and keep that attached to us with our health, then we stand a greater chance of having these results sustainable over the long term.
Yeah. It's really funny. I'm really glad that you talked about that, because you nicely led into the generational health aspect of what you do. And, it also got me thinking that, certainly because I'm, part Asian culture, and my dad did weights and stuff when I was a small child, not to a heavy extent, but enough to keep himself kind of fit. And then through his 30s, 40s, 50s, he was in carpets and beds and furnishings and stuff. So, his exercise was derived from the physical activity he did in his job. But, running, cycling, those sorts of things, and not really, the generation above me was not really their thing. Whereas my generation, my peers and so on, they've got kids, all this kind of stuff. It's not as much a taboo conversation anymore for them to talk about being clad in lycra every weekend,
Mhm.
cycling 50, 60 miles or whatever in groups. And then when their kids are old enough to get on their bikes, for them to be going out with their parents as well. And so they're creating, and then, with the way that they're eating, diets are changing and so on as well, being more open to making those sorts of changes, is obviously setting a great example and trend for generations to come. So, from a generational health perspective, I totally now am seeing why that is so important. I think our generation, our sort of peer group, is really really important right now, in terms of setting the right examples for generations to come. That also kind of, talking about sleep is one thing, because this week that we had in Madrid, I mean, the reason we booked the flights at the last minute, I was meant to be recording with you earlier this week,
Mhm.
and then this whole trip just basically took over, but we didn't pre-plan it. It was literally, I was about to blow the engine, my wife was as well, and I just went online and just booked the flights, and I was like, we're getting out of here, we need to go. um so and when we got there, we were just talking about, going to the gym. Was I going to go running, because I obviously couldn't take my bicycle with me? And I said, you know what, if I have to choose between exercise and sleep for the next 7 days, I choose sleep.
Mhm.
If I can get 10 hours in every night, because I don't get that in London, I know that I'm going to feel a lot better by the end of the week. I think in the end, I was averaging somewhere between 10 to 12 hours.
Oh wow, yeah, you must have, you needed a lot of recovery
I
to
really,
yeah, if your body's
yeah,
allowing you to sleep that long, yeah, you must have been hitting it hard.
exactly. So, and lo and behold, I feel a ton better for it. Um, but one thing that did help with that, and I know it's something that you'll happily talk about, is the technology aspect that's introduced itself into our lives today. So, I've had an Apple Watch since the first one came out, and I've had pretty much every iteration of it since. I
Hmm.
credit it with, certainly when I went through the big weight loss phase, definitely the watch was instrumental in that, because it helped me to, keep in, I'm very goal orientated. So for me, closing those rings every day and hitting my goals is very, very important. Wasn't
Hmm.
unusual for me to, at 10:30 at night say, sorry, I've got to go for a run because I need to hit this before midnight. Or I'd be like 50 calories off. And so I'd be running up and down the stairs, time and
Hmm.
again, trying to get the damn thing over what it needed to be. But on the sleep side of things, there's great functionality with a lot of these devices now, where you can actually set how much sleep you need every night. And
Hmm.
it also sets reminders for, you should be getting ready to start winding down, to start getting ready for bed now, and so on. Um, there are a lot of people I speak to who are really, really interested, because they'll see the watch on my wrist and they'll be like, "Oh
Hmm.
wow, do you use that a lot?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I actually only use it to tell the time, and I use it for fitness tracking. I don't use it for anything else. I don't have any other apps, notifications, or anything on there. Those are the only two things I use this thing for." And they're really, really interested in that, and they really kind of get on board with it. And then there are other people who just kind of scoff at it, and they're just like,
Hmm.
yeah, like, I can't see how that would help me. Um, when it comes to technology, where do you stand on how useful it is in, you know, kind of keeping people on the straight and narrow? Did I want to use that term? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, well, the first thing is you have to remember the golden rule is that you own the technology doesn't own you. And I say that because you mentioned the example with the fasting people. It's like, I can't do this because it tells me not to. So that's the first thing, because a lot of people that would be interested in this also probably most likely a little bit type A as well. So you can get a little overzealous with it. The next thing I would say is the technology is not 100% accurate yet, but there's very few absolutes in this world. It gives you a very good baseline. So that's another thing. So take things, you don't have to just take things just 100% literal as it says. Now, the next side of things, I think it's great for a certain segment of people out there who are, who need some sort of accountability. They need some sort of awareness for what they're doing today. Also, for people who have an ego, let's be honest a little bit, a lot of people, generally a lot of the more high performing people, they got an ego. That's how they got there. That's good, right? You're borderline arrogant and everything. So me telling you something is like, okay, yeah, I get it. But when we have data has no affiliations with anyone. Data is just data. So this is something that we can have to show, okay, hey, this is how you're living. This is your relationship when you have alcohol, maybe an hour and a half before bed. This is how it's going to affect your sleep quality. So you might have been in bed for 7.5 to 8 hours. But if you look how many times you woke up during the night, look at how little REM sleep you got, how little deep sleep you got, and all this light sleep. So your sleep wasn't really restorative. It was more like junk food sleep. So little things like that. Also, I think it's great for the technology. It's like having a mini checkup every single day of the year. And why I say that is because most of these things now, you can get basic biomarkers. You can get your heart rate, you can get your respiratory rate, your oxygen saturation, you can get your HRV, and you can get your sleep. And so when you know these things, you know where you generally stand. And so for myself, for example, I caught a bug, some kind of stomach bug or something it's like a 24-hour thing. But I saw ahead of time, like a day or two beforehand, that my heart rate was up a little more when I woke up, and my HRV went down, and my respiratory rate was up a little bit more than normal. So I was like, okay, something's going on. My body's fighting something right now. And so I could take the preventative measures that day to start accounting for guessing what it could be. So let me go ahead. So I'm giving myself an extra few days for a buffer of whatever could come. So therefore, I'm theoretically lessening the severity of whatever's coming, which I did. I was down for 24 hours and then back. And so now you're getting this great preventative tool that, you know, with the thing that during the pandemic, a lot of people that had these wearables, before they even had these symptoms of that, their markers would just tank like 2 to 3 days beforehand. And I just think, like, if more people had that, like, what could have been done with that? And then you can also see there's this cool device called First Beat. I don't know if it's for the general public yet, but you wear this device, and for 3 days, every single heartbeat is measured. And the cool thing about that is that you can see these huge peaks throughout someone's day. And you're like, it's a very stressful period for you, and you don't even know it. And so for some people, something as simple as having these meetings and just emails stresses them out. And you can see these huge spikes in their heart rate just from something like that. And then you can start to dial that in and work on it. And why you want to do that is because what you're doing is you are balancing your sympathetic and your parasympathetic system. In a nutshell, think of parasympathetic as just something as rest and relaxation, and think of sympathetic as the thing that flight or flight. And most of us, we're very sympathetically driven, especially if you consume more and more caffeine as well. And so our nervous system and body is out of this alignment. So when we have this knowledge in mind, we can start to do more activities throughout our day, such as maybe, of course, sleeping, but even just something as like 5 to 10 minutes in the middle of the day to just breathe or meditate or just pause and even just think about, how's my day going? What's going on? And just to check in with yourself, to give yourself some calm to go along with that. And then you're bringing your body more into this homeostasis and this balance. And the last thing with the technology is that you can offer more precision-based interventions and tools when you know your data. So you don't have to guess as much. There's still a little bit of guessing involved. Obviously, none of us are psychic, but when you have more of your data, you can say, okay, based on this data, this hypothesis, this initial plan that you can make, it's going to be much more precise and tailored because now you have these inputs that you can do. So this is very important when you think about diets, because there's some people who don't process saturated fat as well as others. So if they just jump on a diet of just eating a bunch of steak and butter, it might not be as good for them. And then over the long run, cognitively, they're going to feel the effects, whereas maybe someone else didn't. Or maybe someone is much more, has a propensity for inflammation than others. So maybe when you're making like a protocol and you're thinking, okay, let's add some more vitamins and supplements and just interventions in general to help offset this inflammation compared to the other person who doesn't tend to generate that as much. So that's in a nutshell some of the key things that I think about technology. So I think everyone I think it has a place in everyone's arsenal. The level of detail is the thing that I would say is based on where you are in your health journey right now and what you're interested in.
Yeah.
So for like some of my family members, something as just steps and just something to encourage them for activity. It's all they need. So they need something very basic. They don't need the Garmin watch or anything where it's telling you about the sun and you have all these different GPS roadmaps and all these different features. You don't need that. They're not going to do any of that. So I think, so in a nutshell, to tie all this up, technology is great, but just know your own psychology and where you are in your journey. And that will depend on how much of it you want to bring into your life.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, honestly, we do not have time to talk about everything that we could talk about. I mean, we could probably produce a 12-hour podcast episode and break it up into chunks. But there was something you touched on there about different diets, etc., or different types of food, different people react differently and so on. And I'm trying to keep more in touch with, and stress is the other thing I want to talk about before I let you go today. I'll make a careful note of foods that either bloat me or I react in a bad way to, or make me feel kind of low in energy or whatever. And I make a note of them and I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. Problem comes, and I get this from clients as well, is that you do that and then there's a little bit of peer pressure from your partner if you're in a relationship, because they're not affected in the same way that you are. And yet, especially when you're out at a restaurant or something, that's different because you can kind of control that to an extent because you're both ordering different things off a menu. Problem when you're at home is, I try telling my wife eventually when she listens to this, unless you can hear me in the other room, in which case, if this recording ends abruptly, you know what happened. But it's like she loves pasta, and I like it. I don't love it, but also the problem for me is that if it's a low energy food for me. So I don't like to do it. And I particularly do not like to do it late or have pasta for dinner. She can do it. Her metabolism's completely different. Doesn't affect her. But the problem is at home, if I cook, she fancies pasta one night and I make her spaghetti bolognese or lasagna or whatever. And then I make broccoli and a lean piece of beef fillet for myself and put those on the table. She's probably going to call the divorce lawyer the next day. I mean, she'll have a good moan about it as well. But it's like, how do you legislate for that? How do you deal and navigate with that? Is that something that you come across often as well? And there's also just general peer pressure where, clients are like, yeah, I know what I need to do. But the problem is that I go to lunches and these dinners and it looks a bit stupid if I'm kind of, just at the salad bowl or whatever, and I'm not drinking, because then everybody makes funny comments and stuff. And then I feel like I need to join in.
Yeah, there's a lot of thinking on that. I guess I'll get myself off. So me personally, I don't feel that anymore, but that's because I'm very rigid in everything and stubborn. So I don't have that issue. I went on a date, and couldn't have gluten, right? Sounds like Jesus. It's like a lot of my restaurant choices, right? So I was like, my goodness. And so, you know, so you have to do that. And like you said, it's easier to do that when you go out to eat. Now, for some people, you know, for example, say someone needed to lose weight and his wife didn't need to lose weight. And what I generally recommend is that you just let her know, hey, this is what I'm working on, I'm trying to do. And you get them on board. And I think a lot of times if you get them on board, it's almost like, I think you're talking to your employees and you're telling them why this mission, why this quarter, whatever you're going after, why this is so important. And you just be upfront with them, why this is so important to you, why this is, and generally people would love nothing more than contribute to that. If you explain to them why this is so important. So I would say the first thing is just to explain, hey, I'm trying to lose X amount of pounds because I give some reasons, make sure to include them in, a couple of them to really,
because if I don't, I'm going to die really early. Do you want that?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to scare them, you can say that, but you can say, hey, I want to be the best husband, the best wife that I can be. And I want to be there fully for our kids and present, have more energy. And you can think of those things. And then the next thing is say, don't eat it every night, but if that's something important to them, you can still have it. This thing, I think about ratios with nutrition unless you're some type of high level athlete or something, you don't necessarily have to do like a 95, like 100% spot on, or even 95% spot on. If you're going to hit 85% of the time, you're pretty dialed in compared to that 15%. For most people, you're going to hit your goals pretty easily. It's only when I don't think most people are just striving to be a top level athlete and have super, super low body fat or any of that stuff. If they are, then the more precise and difficult and probably, the more precise your target is, the more you probably have to sacrifice and give up. But if it's for general health, to have a good level of body fat, good biomarkers, you don't have to necessarily be like 95.5 or anything. And so, because I tell people, do not model me when it comes to eating, because I'm fairly competitive with my sporting right now. So I'm not a good measure. Eat those same foods I eat, but also enjoy life a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So enjoy those things. So the first thing is let them know, treat them kind of like they're part of your team. So tell them why this is important. Tell them what this does to your health and everything. And if you want, you can even show them, this is how my health looks right now. It's recommended that I get this, say for blood sugar or something. It's recommended that I get this A1C, this fasting glucose, fasting insulin under control. And so I need to make a few changes right now. It doesn't mean that we're going to eliminate this completely, but I just can't eat it every night because it's not conducive to my goals, and it's not fair to you all, because I want to show up to be the best for you all. And so, sweet talk her, however you sweet talk her, but you get the gist there. And usually that works.
By the way, he didn't say that specifically to you, Carolina, if you'll listen when you eventually listen to this. Okay. But anyway, hear the story, get the message.
But generally those things. And then you can start to find maneuvers around that. Because generally, like I said, another thing for usually with carbs, for most people, you can maybe eat a lower carb diet throughout the day and still have protein and vegetables. And then at dinner time, kind of you can get some of your carbs in. And so most of our dinners are going to be in the evening anyway. And so then if you do feel a little sluggish or lethargic, it's fine, because a lot of your most important activities have been done throughout the day. So and so therefore that kind of helps mitigate the situation, and you're getting the best of both worlds. So I generally tell people to go fairly low carb throughout the day, eat your protein, vegetables still to get some calories in and protein. And then at dinner time is probably when you can have the majority of your carbohydrates, and you should be fine. And it helps a little bit with relaxation, the carbohydrates. So it should theoretically help with sleep as well. Just don't do it right at bedtime.
Yeah. Or if any of my clients are listening to this, just get a divorce and marry someone who's, more in tune with your dietary requirements, could be easier. But
I don't
being
know.
serious for a second, buy-in is firstly a lot cheaper. But you're
Absolutely.
right. Buy-in is the most important thing. Sharing your
Mhm.
goals, get them on the bus so that, it's a lot easier to do it that way than it is to, constantly keep fighting against.
And there's always cook classes. There's always cookbooks, or there's always ways to try new recipes and everything. And you can have that as a joint activity. So therefore, you know, you have a new date night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Which might also help to relieve stress, which is the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about before I let you go,
exactly.
because there's something that you say, which is um turning stress into an asset. And the
Hmm.
first time I read that, I thought, is he nuts?
A
But
little
now
bit.
having spent, yeah, having having spent the last hour with you and a bit, um, and I don't seem to detect any stress in your persona whatsoever, and I don't think you're the sort of person that certainly probably doesn't get as stressed as I do on a regular basis. But turning stress into an asset, what the hell is that all about,
Yeah.
Julian?
So I do get stressed a lot. This but I'm good at saving face. This is I had a brief career. I had a brief acting phase and a brief modeling phase, right? So I'm like a D-list actor. Terrible, terrible actor. I can tell some stories that man. I'll give you one real quick. So I needed to be this military guy, and I needed to, you know, be like an abuser, right? Um and as you can hear me talking, I don't sound like someone who can really raise their voice and sound intimidating.
No, not at all.
And so I tried to do this with the girl and to yell at her, and I couldn't say. I just started laughing, and she started laughing, and I told the director, "It's like, I'm going to go ahead and leave. This is a casting call." So I was like, "This is not the role. I'm not going to waste your time, man." And so I just left.
And that was
But
that.
anyway, it was fine. I'm better. I'm better in roles where there's nothing where I have to raise my voice or anything. Let me play like a cool character or something. I can do that. But back to the stress as an asset. Another way for stress that helps me, I exercise a lot. So I'm getting it out that way. I think for a lot of us, there's always pent up stress. There's always things going on. You have to find an outlet. And so
Yeah, so for
if I
me,
was
if I
going to be,
may,
yeah,
yeah, you just made me realize that so before we went away, I literally was like a shaken Coke bottle ready to explode all over the place. I very frequently do this when I feel my breathing gets shorter and sharper
hmm
and my heart rate going up and I'm stressed and just feeling overwhelmed. I will dump everything, get my cycle kit on, and I'll walk out the door and I will just go ride. And very quickly, within the first 5 to 10 minutes, like the stress just kind of disappears and
hmm
melts away. And then I can give myself the headspace I need. And very often, a lot of my problem solving takes place then. And when I come back, I kind of feel better prepared to sort of deal with things or not,
those are
just not care about them.
those are those are the toughest workouts when everything is telling you, man, I got so much to do today. There's so many things going on. This is really stressing me out. I really don't have time to go do this. And to actually go do it, that's the most gratifying. And it's also that's the absolute best workouts that you'll have is to do it when you don't want to, because then you'll come back and realize that usually a lot of the problems, they're not a matter of life and death. And so if you've seen that a little bit, it kind of puts things in perspective that, well, okay, no one's necessarily really dying here. It's a little inconvenient. So, but it'll be okay. It'll be okay on that. So, but I think the reason why I said stress is an asset is because not all stress is bad. Stress is actually good. There's eustress and distress. And only through stress do we, you know, thinking and working out right now, continually cycling, that's stressful activity. And by continuing to stress your body and then rest and recover, eat, the next time you go cycle, over the course of time, you're going to get better at that because you're putting your body through stress. Because through these stressful opportunities, this is how we're growing. If we never stressed ourselves and put this force on ourselves, then we can never expect ourselves to grow. Now, sometimes we overextend ourselves. Sometimes maybe as we're stretching ourselves to grow, sometimes we take too big of a leap and it becomes problematic. And that's something that's fixable. We just don't take the leap as far next time, and so, and it's like running. When I first started running, I thought, okay, I'm in good shape already. I box, lift weights and everything, so it's fine. So I'll just bump up to about 35, 40 miles a week off the jump. Terrible idea.
Yeah, I feel sick just thinking about it.
And I felt it, but now that's nothing to me. But I felt that. But this stress, it forced me to learn from the situation. It forced me to face what just happened. And through that feedback, I was able to implement and then learn from that the next time around. And so that's why I think stress can be these obstacles, these discomforts that we feel for whatever thing. It's opportunities for us to grow, opportunities for us to level up and to become a better version of ourselves. And also, when you think about aging and longevity, one of the most critical things is our mindset and our perception of the situation. If you look at some of the longest living populations, at the very top is this mindset, this perception that they have on just life itself. Because things are just as is, but oftentimes it's how we perceive the situation. So does the situation suck? Maybe, but there's opportunity within that. And that's just also lessons that I learned from my father, from watching him have to go through amputations and everything. He was still able to crack jokes. So for me, I always have, okay, if my dad could crack jokes in all these times, then I'm complaining about business. I'm complaining about, like, I don't know, a process or something. It's annoying. Maybe I'm a little high strung. Maybe I need to go breathe or something, or just kind of just toughen up and realize that that's still a lot of my problems compared to other situations are not as big of a deal. So not to diminish anyone's problems, but in the grand scheme of things, if you keep the big picture in mind, things are actually fine. They're a little disjointed right now, but in the big picture, this is going to serve my benefit because it's exposing me for some limitation that I have right now. So if I'm annoyed at a process within the business right now, then this is a gap I had that was blocking me from taking the next step, the next iteration of the business and myself. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, why I think of stress as an asset.
Yeah, I think it's if you use it as an indicator and you just take time to breathe, just pause rather than hyper react to stress or a stressful situation, and actually just kind of relax back a little bit and just kind of take a broader view of whatever it is, which then allows you to kind of learn from it and then deal with it. Rather, stress that isn't an asset is when you're hyper reactive. You make emotional decisions. You talked about that earlier, and then you kind of just keep compounding the problem.
Yeah, and there's different types of stress also, and I think that sometimes we lose sight of that. Sometimes there's this just general existential stress. Sometimes there's this environmental stress from just our surroundings. It's stress in itself. Sometimes it's people. Sometimes, so it's not, stress is not always just a physical thing. There's many different facets of stress. So when the stress does come, even taking time to just see because I thought about this yesterday, actually. For some reason, for like 30 minutes, I was just really moody and cranky, irritated about something. And I couldn't figure it out what I was irritated about. And so I was just walking and thinking about this, like, why? I was like, why the hell am I just so cranky right now? I can't think of anything. But if you pause to think about it, I think it was just like a email, like just dealing with the emails. And I was behind on some emails. And it kept weighing over me. You know how you have things that you need to do, but you just still don't do them, and they just keep compounding in the back. And it's like having browsers up on your computer,
Yeah.
You need to get rid of them, but they just keep sitting there. But it's clogging up your mental space, and you just don't know why. So that was kind of a thing with that yesterday. And I kind of look at that in life, is that there's a lot of things that's clouding over us, a lot of conflicts, many conflicts, not even like a physical way, it's just many conflicts and things that are unsettled that needs to be settled. And this is just taking up this mental space in our head that can be cleared if we just take care of it, or rip the Band-Aid off of whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay. We also have this thing, just as human beings, our existential condition, constantly questioning subconsciously or consciously, what's the point of anything? Which
that's very true. It's very, I mean, that's true though. If you think, I mean, I don't know. When you're running out there,
what I mean? It's like you can have a day where like some
Yeah.
client is moaning about something and you're just like seriously, dude, like you could be hit by a bus tomorrow. So like, this is really not the most important thing in the world.
Yeah.
And then, but then your thoughts can just start to trickle down that alley of, waiting for Godot.
Yeah. Or even things like podcasting at times, sometimes, right? If you're like, why am I doing this? I don't have to do this. Or like a bunch of different things.
Okay, my friends ask me this all the time. Why you're still doing that podcast thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. Or like, why are you running so much and stuff and lifting and stuff? And sometimes if you think about it, it's like, it's not just for just health at this point, because that's beyond just health. Sometimes it can actually go the other way. And so you're like, why am I doing this? Because I'm thinking it's like rainy or cold. And I'm like, why am I running 20 miles? You think about it for a minute, like, why am I running 20 miles? Because a lot of stuff goes through your head when you're out just exercise. I'm sure you think about that when you're cycling. Like, why exactly am I doing this? Like when you're in the middle of it, you're like, okay, I got like 30, 40 more miles to go. Why am I doing this? I can just go sit at home, be comfortable. And so we have to fight against that. And that's part of the stress I'm talking about. But I also think that's part of the things that rewards those, like those who put themselves in more stressful situations and embrace it, they're going to be rewarded more in life. And so I kind of think about that, like everything has a cause and effect.
Yeah. It was, again, something someone said to me recently was, most things we don't like the actual doing, but we like the results. So oftentimes when you're when you're embarking on your 20-mile run, you're not really thinking or focusing on putting on your trainer, your sneakers, and your shorts and your vest or whatever you run in. For me, it's not about putting on my cycling kit and, my cleats and gloves and all of that stuff. I'm trying to think past all of that to about the midway point through my ride when the endorphins are flowing and I'm just, I'm in that state of flow and I'm happy.
It's the feeling. It's the
feeling. Exactly. That's it.
Not to get too spiritual, but that a lot of things come down to just the feeling. A lot of the things that we want and that we're seeking, we're seeking a feeling. I don't think about, I think about when I first started working out. I thought I was chasing, a certain physique, but I was really chasing a feeling of confidence, a feeling of security in my own skin. And I think even with some of the guys in business that continually just push and push the envelope and think of nothing more, there's some type of feeling there that they're pursuing, that maybe feels elusive to them or that they're addicted to. And like with running, it doesn't feel good on mile 4 and 5. It's still boring and everything, but when you get done and you're like, wow, 20 miles, there's just a certain feeling that you have, and that carries over into your day. You have an edge to yourself, and it's like, I can put myself through physical hard things, so whatever comes my way, I'm going to be able to handle it. And that's kind of how I think about training now, is that I put myself through some pretty rigorous things, so a lot of this other stuff, I'm going to be able to handle it, whatever comes my way. Because optimal health at the end of the day is about resiliency. That's the most important thing, is resiliency. We'll get sick sometimes, we'll get knocked down, but it's what's your resiliency with that? How quick can you bounce up and get back?
Yeah. I think Stallone said something similar in Rocky Balboa. It's not about how many times you get hit. It's about getting hit. It's about how you can keep moving how you can get hit and keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Those are some great music as well. What I'm thinking, the Rockies,
for running.
The Rockies, and then the Creed has a couple of songs as well. I have that's a separate playlist.
Oh yeah, totally. Like I haven't seen Creed 2 yet, and I heard there's a Creed 3 on the way.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I think I actually bought Creed 2 on digital download, but I just didn't get around to watching. Maybe I'll do that this weekend. But yeah, no, great. I mean, I put on the Rocky soundtrack, and like I said, running is not really my sport. It's not for me, but I'll happily go run 10, 20 kilometers, like 10, 12 miles on that music. Anyway, sorry. So I'm really, really looking forward to joining you next week on the Executive Health podcast.
Or Executive Health and Life. I forget the name sometimes. Yeah,
Executive Health. The name as well. But I'll
because I changed the name. I changed the name recently, so I was at I guess you could say a mastermind months ago, early 2021, and they were just asked me a simple question like, why do you have like 2 different brands and things like that? And I was like, I don't know. Why don't you just all name it the same? And I was like, I guess that makes sense. So I guess I'll change it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's super. You're overthinking. I was just overthinking things. You just do it. But yes, executive health, and I call it executive health and life because at some point I will probably have some more lifestyle stuff, especially on the YouTube. So this is to add that extra buffer because I think a lot of things are connected to health that most people don't. But it's also a reason for me to include these things and talk about it. Because if I just talked about, nutrition all day and different things, it gets boring. So you like to add a few different things in there to spice it up.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of figured that talking about tailoring twice a week or menswear would just get really boring. But the feedback I'm getting in letters is basically we absolutely love the Bondathon. We love listening to, all the different entrepreneurs and so on that you have on, and because we learn loads. But can you talk a bit more about menswear and stuff? So anyway, we will get to that.
They're going to make you start doing another episode every week. So I think for me, what I'm going to do this year, I'm going to make sure to always do a health related episode. And then I'll have something else that week that's either closely related or not related at all, but I'll make it related because I'm very good at just talking things and making it related. So law was my second choice in terms of what I was going to do because I could just talk myself out of situations typically.
I mean, a subheading of life encompasses a lot of things. So I think you can get away with quite a bit. So where can people can find you online at executivehealth.io, is that right?
Yep, executivehealth.io, and I just created a free report that people can get. So it's executivehealth.io/report, and it's 17 simple actions that you can do to slow down aging and keep performing at a high level in a nutshell.
Awesome. I will make sure that link is in the show notes for everybody. Thank you so much again, Julian. I really look forward to seeing you again next week, so we get to do it all again, but on your podcast this time. I have no idea what. I'm sure you'll tell me, or maybe you won't. I'll just kind of launch in unprepared and you'll steer the conversation. But have you had fun today?
Of course, yeah. I was looking forward to this conversation. I knew we were going to get along, so yeah, this is a very enjoyable conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for joining Julian and I on this episode. Don't forget, Tailoring Talk is on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast. I don't know what the point of the Instagram page is, but anyway. But no, it's where you can keep up to date with latest episodes. And you know that I love feedback. So you can hit me up on Instagram or email me directly at tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. You can also click the share button in your player to send this episode on to people you know who might get some help or be inspired by Julian today. And if you're enjoying Tailoring Talk and want to support the show, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Roberto Rivilla. Have a great week. Be good to each other, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you, my friend.
No, thank you. That was fun.